The snow whipped through the air like 1,000 icy needles that bitter December night in 1892, each one piercing deep into a man's resolve. Elijah Grant stood at the threshold of his modest cabin, oil lamp flickering in his calloused grip as he gazed upon the figures slumped against his porch steps. Margaret Hayes, the widowed librarian who'd turned heads in every corner of Silver Ridge, Montana, lay there like a vision from a forgotten dream, her heavy wool skirt hugging forms that even the brutal Montana winter couldn't conceal. Behind him, his solitary home loomed empty. Ahead, a forecasted 4-day blizzard threatened to seal them in a cocoon of seclusion that could shatter reputations or ignite long-suppressed fires within. Elijah had sworn an unbreakable vow to his late mother to preserve his purity for a woman of true worth. But as Margaret's hazel eyes flickered open, locking onto his with a plea that echoed the screaming gale, that vow felt like shackles binding his very spirit. The untouched homesteader teetered on the edge. Would his honor shield him, or would it finally shatter under the weight of destiny? Not all bonds are forged in steel. Some are woven from devotion, obligation, and the final whispers of the only soul who'd ever truly understood you. Elijah learned this at 18, crouched by his mother's bedside in their humble shack near Billings. Abigail Grant had been cook, healer, and pillar after his father fell to a Comanche raid. With her last ragged breath, she demanded a pledge that would shape the following 14 years. "Elijah," she rasped, her frail hand clutching his, "vow to me you'll hold yourself for the right woman, not chasing skirts in taverns like your pa'll wait for real love." He vowed it. No boy denies his dying mother, but oaths to the departed can morph into cages for the living. By 32, Elijah towered at 6'3", a slab of Montana grit honed by wrangling steers, his aim sharp enough to drill a dime from 60 yards. His 800-acre homestead was modest, but earned through sweat from sunup to sundown work that drowned out the ache of isolation gnawing at his core like a persistent wolf. Folks in Silver Ridge dubbed him the chaste farmer in hushed tones, never outright. They'd watched him nod politely to dance hall dames, avert his gaze when the baker's wife leaned in too close, pouring his tea, bolt from chit-chat, veering toward carnal topics. What they missed were his sleepless nights, eyes fixed on the raftered ceiling, pondering if his mother's edict was a safeguard or sentence. Margaret Hayes knew solitude's sting. For years since pneumonia claimed her spouse, for years educating the town's youth while her own hearth stayed barren, for years enduring murmurs as too striking to be left unsupervised. At 48, her allure unfolded subtly. Like dawn cresting the Rockies, her chestnut locks streaked with silver that gleamed like polished quartz, always coiled in an elegant bun that sparked men's fantasies of it tumbling loose. Her hazel eyes brimmed with wisdom from late-night tomes and postponed aspirations, yet unextinguished. She dwelled in a cramped annex behind the library, scraping by on her meager salary and the wary buffer she kept from Silver Ridge's rumor mill. But barriers crumble when a Montana nor'easter rewrites fate. December 22nd, 1892, the sort of freeze that crystallizes exhalations and stalls oxen in their traces. Margaret had no option. Young Billy Thompson scorched with fever on his kin's outpost 10 miles out, and the dock was snowed in at Helena. She'd saddled up with remedies and hot stew, reaching just as the storm's vanguard plummeted the mercury like a lead weight. Billy pulled through by midday, fever yielding, but the trek back devolved into a hellscape of blinding flurries and winds shrieking like banshees. Her gelding, Rusty, battled mounting drifts for 7 miles before a concealed ravine snapped his cannon bone with a crack like gunfire. Margaret grasped her doom. Afoot, for miles remaining, dusk descending like a shroud. The ensuing hours pitted her survival instinct against Montana's lethal embrace. Snow crammed her boots, drenched her coat, numbed her digits to useless stumps. Her gasps tore sharply as she plowed through waist-high banks. When Elijah's cabin emerged from the blizzard like a phantom oasis, she doubted her sight. The golden lamplight beckoned impossibly warm. She staggered the final 70 paces, collapsing at his door, knuckles feeble in their wrap. The portal swung wide, and she peered up into the kindest eyes imaginable. Elijah beheld Silver Ridge's most gossiped about lady and sensed a fracture in his fortified heart, not his oath, but the glacial barrier he'd erected since his mother's passing. Margaret trembled violently, lips cyanotic against ashen flesh. Frost jewels adorned her lashes like gems, and her gown that prim librarian's attire clung mercilessly, outlining every contour. "Please," she chattered. Elijah wavered not. No principled man abandons a soul to the elements. He lifted her effortlessly. She felt lighter than a fawn and bore her indoors. As the door latched, sealing out the tempest, both intuited their worlds had irrevocably shifted. For days the gale would howl, confining them in a chamber scarcely larger than a buggy, with naught separating them but integrity, desolation, and the budding realization that redemption sometimes dons temptation's guise. Blizzards have a way of peeling back facades, perhaps the erasure of society beneath blanketing white, or a hearth's glow becoming life's essence, or simply that near death strips propriety bare. Elijah's abode suited a bachelor. One room with a fieldstone hearth, a slim cot against the wall, a plank table for scant meals. He draped her sodden cloak by the flames, fetching dry garb, his plaid shirt draping to her knees, thick socks climbing her calves. "Turn away," she murmured, voice firming with returning heat. He complied, facing the timbered panel as cloth whispered behind him. But his long-dormant fancy ignited, envisioning her digits unfastening buttons, the damp fabric slipping from porcelain skin. "You can turn." His inhale hitched. Margaret by the fire, altered, his oversized shirt accentuating her bosom's rise and hips sway. Her locks had unraveled in the ordeal, cascading in moist waves beyond her shoulders. She appeared rejuvenated, yet her eyes held a seasoned yearning of a woman, not a maiden. "Thank you," she uttered plainly. They partook of his sparse repast quietly, the sole noises the fire's snap and the wind's wail, encircling like a beast. But quietude between man and woman proves perilous. It invites glances that overstay, awareness blooming like embers. "The whole town's got tales about you," Margaret ventured, placing her mug aside. Elijah flushed. "I suppose they do. They call you the chaste farmer." The phrase lingered like haze. Elijah eyed his brew, mandible clenched. "What they say ain't their concern." Margaret inclined nearer, hazel orbs mirroring flames. "Is it a fact?" He might have fibbed, should have, but the storm, her aura, her non-judgmental gaze unlocked his guarded vault. "Swore to my ma on her deathbed," he confessed softly. "Said I'd bide for the proper woman." "Seemed right." Margaret paused, then her tone hushed. 32, and you've honored it daily?" Her palm enveloped his rough, won the contact, seared like a brand. "That marks you the noblest in Montana, the most misguided." Elijah met her gaze, spotting a spark that thudded his heart like a stampede. "Perhaps both." Beyond, the squall intensified, but within, a fiercer maelstrom brewed. Day 3 offered no respite, yet ushered Harlan Brooks in peril, astride with reinforcements. Elijah chopped kindling out back when hoofbeats pierced the drifts, 4 riders forging through despite the fury. He knew Harlan's bay stallion through the veil of white. Harlan owned the Golden Nugget Saloon and its attendant sins. At 50, he'd thickened and soured, particularly toward Margaret Hayes. For 8 months, he pursued her relentlessly, bouquets, supper bids, pledges of provision that curdled her stomach. "Grant!" Harlan's bellow sliced the gale like a dull knife. "You've got what's mine." Elijah rounded the structure, rifle in grasp, but lowered. Harlan perched mounted, backed by Zeke Harlan and Tom, Rileytown ruffians trading muscle for rotgut. Ain't holding aught of yours, Brooks. Harlan's visage crimsoned beyond chill. The librarian spotted her mount lame in the gully, trailed her here. She's vanished since yestereve. Town's in a frenzy. Through the pain, Elijah glimpsed Margaret, still in his garb, tresses unbound. The intimate vista fueled a primal rage, protective, possessive. She sought refuge from the blast. Elijah stated evenly, just decency. Harlan's guffaw grated. Decency? The chaste farmer snags a dame at last stand as season 1. The slur suspended like a lash's snap. Elijah sensed a seismic shift not tied to his vow, but a man's defense of his own. Apologize, Brooks. Or what? Harlan spat chaw that hissed in the snow. Gonna plug me over a faded widow? Hell, son, I'm initiating you with one who knows the ropes. Elijah leveled the rifle. The chamber's click boomed like thunder. Apologize. Now. Silence save pine whistling wind. Harlan's paw darted for his sidearm. Chaos erupted. Elijah's initial round clipped Zeke's arm, toppling him. The next mangled Tom's trigger finger pre-draw. Harlan's revolver half out when Elijah grazed his brim, singeing scalp. Next ain't a caution. Elijah chambered new. Harlan blanched pale as drift banked on the farmer folding. Not this glacial steel. This ain't finished, he snarled, wheeling his mount. It is. Elijah countered as they vanished into white. Elijah re-entered, stern from violence's wake. Margaret had witnessed via the window, seen his metamorphosis from mild tiller to lethal guardian. You risk death, she breathed. Some stakes merit it. She pivoted. Her eyes held no terror, but raw want that set his veins aflame. What value do I hold for you, Elijah? The query bridged their chasm. He stowed the rifle, hands quivering from adrenaline, yielding to deeper peril. All. Margaret advanced, barefoot on planks. Still in his shirt, firelight rendered fabric sheer, shadowing a lure that plagued his reveries. Your mother's vow? She murmured, inches away. He traced her cheek tenderly. What if the right one's been here, and fear blinded me? Margaret's lids drooped at his caress. I'm no ingenue, Elijah. 48, wedded once, versed in intimacy yet starved of connection. We've both tasted ash, he replied. Perhaps we fulfill each other. Her eyes brimmed with cathartic tears. I haven't felt wanted in years, doubted my womanhood beyond the widow's veil. Elijah cradled her visage, erasing droplets. Margaret, your exquisite deep beauty that steals my breath. She chuckled, melodic amid storm. Poetic for a chaste farmer. Takes the fitting woman to unearth the bard. Margaret tiptoed, lips grazing his. Teach me. Their kiss commenced gently, exploratory like novices in dialect, but desire roared like an inferno. Elijah enveloped her, drawing her to his solid warmth. Margaret yielded with a sigh, unraveling decades of restraint. They parted, gasping. Storm persists, Margaret husked. So do we, he affirmed. What ensued was unhurried, graceful despite Elijah's novice status. Margaret led with gentle wisdom, revealing how to venerate a form with caresses, kisses, murmurs. She showed passion's sanctity not as his mother envisioned, but profound. In heart's glow, as winds battered, Elijah grasped some vows fracture for superior bonds. Margaret learned rescue arrives as a gent who reveres you as saint and siren, loving with Scripture's reverence and Montana's ferocity. They slumbered entwined, for once neither haunted by solitude. Dawn broke serene, silvered gale spent. Elijah stirred first, Margaret's head on his breast, locks fanned like satin. He marveled at this intricate beauty who'd stormed his existence. She awoke, hazel meeting his. Fleeting doubt flickered the dawn's remorse that could raise nocturnal edifices. Regrets, she queried softly. Only that a blizzard was needed. He kissed her crown. Margaret beamed, radiant. Storm's done. Time for reality. They clad leisurely, resuming personas. Farmer, librarian, storm-sheltered acquaintances. But transformed. Elijah's gaze lingered as she coiled her hair. Margaret's fingers faltered, buttoning her gown, still moist but serviceable. Now what? She asked. Elijah pondered. Hinges on your desires. Margaret gazed at pristine drifts blanketing all. No secrets, Elijah. No clandestine trysts feigning normalcy. I've half-lived too long. Agreed, he vowed. I'll woo you openly, before Silver Ridge and the Almighty. When ready, I'll propose. Margaret whirled, astonished. Just so? No shame from whispers, you're standing. He clasped her hands, kneeling. I've fretted opinions for 32 years, lived by others' rules. Last night taught, only ours count. Margaret Hayes wed me. Through joyful tears, she uttered the transformative word, yes. 7 months on, in July's first balmy morn, Elijah Grant wed Margaret Hayes in Silver Ridge's clapboard chapel, townfolk attending some joyous, others prying at the chaste farmer's conquest. Harlan Brooks absented. He'd fled Montana in March, nursing ego and grudge to Oregon. Some tempests purge more than flakes. As Margaret processed in ivory simplicity, Elijah sensed his mother's chain dissolve. He realized Abigail sought not isolation, but patience for authentic love worth 14 years' wait. Their inaugural wedded eve in the transformative cabin, Margaret murmured, no more gales, love just clear skies. Elijah, versed now in affection and adversity, grinned, embracing her. Storms will come, Margaret life assures it, but we'll endure as one. Outside, Montana's expanse gleamed infinite, brimming with potential. In the horizon, thunder murmured not menace, but affirmation that life's finest blooms post-storm. What do you think about Elijah and Margaret's story? Should he have broken his vow, or was honor worth the wait? Share your stance in the comments below. Let's debate the twists of fate and love.